Hey guys, Mr. E here, and today I want to talk about roadmaps. Starting with Space Marine 2's roadmap here, which has been just released a couple of days ago, showcasing the next 9 months of content they have coming for that game. Some of it honestly looking pretty cool, but most importantly, since this is primarily a Darktide channel, for now, it is to compare it to the lack thereof, the lack of plan for Darktide, or at least open-facing plan, the community-facing plan, because I think that roadmaps, especially for games in this genre, Space Marine 2 being a pretty close competitor in terms of like cooperative horde shooters set in the 40k universe, right? They could learn a lot from this and they could benefit a lot from it too. And I want to kind of spell out why roadmaps are good and desirable, how they benefit everybody involved, and try to sell Fat Shark, or try to sell you maybe as the viewer on the idea that we should expect a roadmap for Darktide, and then maybe conceptualize at the end why we haven't ever had a roadmap for Darktide. So let's just begin by talking about what we have in the Space Marine 2 roadmap here, because this is showing the next 9 months of content coming to the game. We've got lots of new PvE missions and maps. In fact, 5 out of 6 of these updates that are going to occur across the next 9 months are going to have new PvE missions, or new like player versus enemy maps or arenas like this. Then we also have a new game modes being added that they're clearly working on. This is like their Auric Maelstrom equivalent, right? There's these extra modifiers they're calling stratagems that make the game harder and more challenging in certain ways and more fun. So that's going to be iterated on across 5 out of these next 6 updates. They're also calling their shots on delivering a new class and what the class is and what one of its weapons are going to be. And all this, honestly, looks pretty dang good. And they're also showing you what sort of orders you're going to be getting access to if you are, a fan of any particular order within the Space Marines, chapters. If you're a fan of some specific chapter, these are the ones you can anticipate, plus whatever this one is over here. So that's all well and dandy, and I'm certain that fans of Space Marine 2 are probably like really excited about this. I wonder why Darktide doesn't do a similar thing, because Darktide is a game that has updates that are somewhere on the same tempo as this, right? We receive one big patch every quarter, and then maybe some like minor hotfixes along the way. So yeah, they wouldn't be able to do this. They wouldn't be able to have 2 patches every quarter. I think a lot of this can be written off to the economies of scale. I think that right now, with the success that Saber has had, with how big Space Marine 2 has blown up over the last year, and also that this is their main game they're focusing on right now, that they probably have a pretty big team working on this game. That's allowing them to have teams that are devoted to specifically designing missions, specifically designing enemies and stratagem balancing and weapons and stuff like that. And that might not be a thing that is completely feasible for Darktide or Fat Shark to do, because I get the picture that maybe the team behind Darktide isn't all that big. They also have other projects they're working on in the background, right? That they are still like actively developing on, so that could take a good amount of focus away. So, we can't say that they need to be performing on the same level one-to-one, and that could be a main criticism of like, why would Darktide ever want to have a battle pass? It would just look like pitiful in comparison. But I want to show you something here, which is I have drafted up why did I say battle pass? I meant roadmap. I have drafted up a roadmap. This is the roadmap of Darktide over the last year, from quarter 3 of 2024, let's write that up here, and then into quarter 1 of 2025 and quarter 2 of 2025, right? So this is everything that we've gotten over the last year, and honestly, ignoring that I scribbled this down with MS Paint, it's pretty impressive. If they'd written it out like this, if they'd shown their homework, if they'd shown that they have cards to hold, I think players would be very excited to see this sort of thing. If we sort of just like glance here what we had over the course of the last year, just to kind of as a retrospective, we had the full itemization rework, we had the new mini-map Rolling Steel, we had cross-class weaponry, we had some balance updates and quality of life. Then in quarter 4, we had our new endgame mode with Havoc, 3 new weapons, a new map. Quarter 1 brought us this new game mode called Mortis Trials and the Ogryn rework, and balancing for all weapons plus Ogryn weapons. They continued to iterate on Havoc and got that to a really good state. Then quarter 2, we finally had our BDs, the first new class for the game. We did a story and leveling overhaul, so the new player experience is all buffed up. Then there's some new weapons that came with the new class, obviously, and of course weapon balance. So that's over the course of the last year, and that's honestly a good bit of content. And my argument here is that if they had gone about this in this way, where they had structured this and said, okay, here are the things that we are going to release in the next year or the next 9 months or however long they can, conceptualize and look at their crystal ball, this would have been good for all parties considered. Because when you have a battle plan, I keep looking at this. Let's not look at the word battle plan. When you have a roadmap, that's what these are called. When you have a roadmap, it's good for the developers, because for developers, what it does is it says, okay, I am going to hold myself accountable to delivering this mission. This new PvE mission has to be delivered by the end of this year. And you are holding yourself accountable to that, right? Your consumers, your players are not going to sue you because you didn't deliver that PvE mission by December, but you're going to let them down. And you have set this expectation that you're going to deliver by this date, and so then you are much more incentivized to do it, right? That's how that psychology works, and you're going to work hard to reach your goals. And this also, when you do reach goals, it reflects really, really well on your development team. It reflects well on your development process, because what it says to players is, okay, they are saying they are going to do these things, and they are proving it. They are showing that they can and will deliver on the stuff that they are claiming, versus what we've seen in with Fat Shark and Darktide in the past, where they will say some pie in the sky thing like Veteran is getting a new weapon. I'm just picking one out of the blue because I know that that's like something that they're still certain players are still holding against Fat Shark, is like there's going to be a new weapon for Veteran, and we still haven't seen it, and it's been 9 months or maybe even a year, right? So that is a sore point for a lot of players, and if players knew when that was coming, that pain point would be erased. Those are the sort of pain points that are alleviated by having a roadmap, right? You wouldn't have to play this game of like, I don't know, maybe I meant within 1 year, maybe I meant in 3 months, and players are all over the place with their expectations. When you set expectations like this, and then you deliver on those expectations, players go, cool, I'm expecting a thing, and then my devs delivered on that thing, and now I'm satisfied. When you spring something on someone, so for instance, if the winter update this year is Gene Stealers, right? There's been no promises by the devs of any new faction or whatever. It's not going to build any player trust that you can deliver on the things that you've claimed, because you never called your shot. If you go ahead and say, hey, in winter, new faction, and you leave that element of mystery out there, there is mystery, like the channel you're watching currently, subscribe. If you leave that element of mystery that there is going to be a new faction, there's still the hype. There's still the, oh my gosh, I wonder what the next update for Darktide is going to bring. Is it going to be Gene Stealers? Is it going to be demons? Who knows? But yes, then you also get to double dip on positive sentiment about the game, because there's going to be all this hype around it. You could even say, hey, the next new class is coming out in spring of next year, and players would be like, oh my gosh, is it going to be Skitarii? Is it going to be a Tech Priest? Like, what is it going to be? Is it going to be Assist Your Battle? Like, all those things are on the table. Players would go run wild talking about it, but right now, players aren't conversing about the game. Players aren't thinking about the game because there's nothing on the horizon as far as they know. And this is something I've seen a lot, unfortunately, for newer players to the game who picked it up with the Arbites launch, who picked up the game, then there was some updates, and they're probably not Mr. E subscribers yet, although someday they will be. Everybody on the earth will be at some point. But they were like, I was seeing them in the Steam comments and on the Reddit posts, like, wait, when's the next update for this game? Like, they literally don't know what to expect out of this game. And so what are you going to do after your devs have been AFK to you, seemingly more or less 3 months, and you don't know if anything's on the horizon at all. The future is a black void when you don't have a roadmap, when you've never conveyed any plans. And so for a lot of players, that's a sign like, okay, well, I'm going to go invest my efforts elsewhere. I'll put down this game and I'll come back when something new comes up. And you might not come back, because what's going to bring you back? If you're not watching Darktide content, if you're not checking the Steam page to see if there's been any updates, there's a pretty low chance that you're going to actually like see that there's been a new update for this game and make that return trip and check it out and re-download it again, right? So this is another place where battle plans really, really work, because if you see ahead of time, like 6 months from now, if they put on the calendar, there's going to be a new class, right? First of all, everyone in the fucking Darktide sphere, everyone that sees the battle pass, or sorry, I keep saying that, the roadmap is going to lose their minds. They're like, okay, 6 months from now, holy shit, that's in April. In April or May, there's going to be another new class. What's it going to be? What's going to be? There's going to be a bunch of conjecture. And that is going to get into your brain, and you're going to be thinking that 6 months from now, you know, whatever I'm doing, maybe I've put down Darktide in the meantime. I've gone on and played some other games. But that will still be at the back of your mind. You'll scroll past Darktide on your Steam page, and you'll be like, oh, Darktide, I wonder what they're doing. You'll click on there, like, oh, right. There's supposed to be a new class, like, you know, one of these days here. I wonder if it's released yet. And then you'll go back in, and that's your way back into the game. That's your way back in to getting re-engaged with the game that you were playing before. And so in that way, we have not only the Battle Pass signaling to players that this is a game that's receiving constant development and is something that you should be interested in investing your time and your resources and your attention in playing with, but it's also signaling to players, okay, yeah, if you want to take a little break and come back, we have stuff planned in the future. Whereas right now, we don't know what they have planned in the future at all. We could literally be like, you know, we could literally be living in the era where Darktide or where Fat Shark is never going to communicate with us again. Now, I have 100% confidence that is not the case, but we haven't received any communication there's going to be a fall update. And we're like less than a month out from when the ostensibly would be. So I've seen a lot of players saying like, wait, guys, is there going to be a fall update this year, or are they skipping straight to winter? And that's a problem, right? That shouldn't be happening. And the reason that is happening is because they're busy with stuff, right? Fat Shark is busy working on stuff, and they don't have time to stop and be like, okay, here's a fucking like explainer dev blog, here's some teaser trailers, all that stuff. Adding in that stuff on top of your dev cycle takes time. So I can understand not wanting to pause and make a presser kit to showcase your new quarterly update because you're still working on the stuff for that update. But if you had a roadmap and players just knew to expect it, you wouldn't have to make that stuff. You wouldn't be under the gun so much to be like, oh my God, players are like losing their minds because what's going to happen, right? So you could avoid that. You could answer so many of those questions about, hey, when is this game going to get updated next? When can we expect the next new mission? When can we expect the next new weapons? What's the next, big thing for Darktide? And answering those questions would make players feel so much more secure in investing their lives in this game. Okay, so that's my argument for why there should be roadmaps. I want to make a counter argument from Fat Shark's standpoint here, and I don't want to be too hard on Fat Shark, but my approximation or my guess as to why we don't receive roadmaps from Fat Shark, and you guys can let me know in the comments if you think this is true or not, is that perhaps there isn't the amount of people working on Darktide that we think there is, or perhaps there's just not the structure that would be needed to have the roadmap. Because, like I said before, when I look at the Space Marine 2, I'm not going to say battle plan, I'm going to say roadmap. When I look at the Space Marine 2 roadmap, what I see here is that they probably definitely have individual teams who are devoted to developing all sorts of different content. So they've got their map design people, they've got their weapon design people, they've got their artists who are devoted just to scenery stuff, like map design artists. Then they've got artists who are devoted just to creating the cosmetic armor sets, right? So the more specialized your team, the more efficiently you can work, and that is something that is just going to come with having more players working on the game. So that's something I'll say about Space Marine, is they probably have more people than Darktide does currently. But Darktide also strikes me as a game that is developed in short bursts, where they have an idea and they work on that idea for 3 months and they deliver it at the end of that 3-month period. So I would be very, very shocked if Havoc as a game mode, as a concept, existed for much longer than from, like, let's say September to when it was ultimately delivered in early December of 2024. I would be blown away to learn that had existed longer than 3 months before, even as a concept. I think that they finished up with the itemization rework and said, okay, so that's finally, we've got the game in like a playable state where players have demanded for a while. What's the next big thing we want to work on? And then someone stuck up their hand and said, I want to do this new end game mode. And they said, all right, let's get to work on it. But they only had 2 months to do it, and so they delivered it kind of unfinished, right? That, to me, really would fit with the way that we've been seeing Fat Shark's releases be, like, almost finished, but they still need polish. Whereas, like, you know, for certain things, like these new weapons that released with that same update and the new map, Clandestine Gloriana, and this is the Relic Blade, the Force Great Sword, and the Heavy Stubber, these things released with a lot of polish, and they're still in their finalized state, and they're still relevant in the game. They weren't, like, completely buggy. There was no issues here. So this homework, let's put it in sort of a school analogy perspective. This sort of stuff right here, this is them doing their homework the night before and turning it in on the due date, right? But Havoc was trying to do the homework during the class where it's due and then sliding it across the teacher's desk at the end of the class, right? We've all been there. We've all put off doing something, or we just didn't quite have the time because we were working on something else. They were working on this stuff and they couldn't quite finish that Havoc thing in time, and they slid it across, and the teacher's like, see me after class, and he made you stay after class and he made you finish it up there. And that's why they kept working on that into Q1 of 2025, and they redid Havoc some more. They did a bunch of tweaks to it and got it to sort of a more finalized state at the end of Q1 2025. So they came back and they finished that homework, but they weren't done at that time. The same thing applies to some stuff with the Ogryn rework. They were working on this right up until the buzzer, right? We saw 1 week ahead of time they were still changing talents in that tree, because, you know, Tanner saved Ogryn and all that stuff. So that was like a buzzer beater where they were just under the wire getting that. And the same thing applies to Arbites, where, like, yes, this class was delivered on time, but there's no cosmetics to go with him, which to me says that, like, and I have another video coming about this real soon, but it says to me that this was something they did in a hurry, and, like, they got the class together. They probably had concepts already ready, concepts of a plan ready for this class. They got it together, but, you know, it takes a long time to put together art, and it especially takes a long time to put together art and then get it approved by Games Workshop. So they probably got a couple of stamps of approval on the 3 outfits that he does have, and then there's a bunch more that they probably had in the background, but they just didn't have time to print those. And so that's why we have potentially, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost sales in terms of, you know, not getting those extra cosmetic sales for the RBs, which there is obviously a huge hunger for out there in the community. And that just really says to me, like, if you had RBs completed 3 months ahead of time, which they never said that they did, by the way, but if they had this class like 99% done 2 months prior or even 1 month prior, obviously you'd invest a lot of your resources in making certain you had a ton of cosmetic stuff to sell alongside this thing to make as many sales as possible to off of that big spike in players to capitalize on that in the moment. But with the reality that we have where they don't have that stuff, this narrative fits much more like tightly to what we see. This is much more Occam's razor for the situation, which is that they just barely got this class finished up in time. They got the outfits that they did, and it was just in time for Skulls and the delivery date that I'm like 90% certain that Games Workshop came in and James Workshop himself kicked down the door and said, guys, shit, we need you to make RBDs for our game because we need to sell some plastic. And that's just kind of what I imagine happened there. And we also see a similar thing with the new storylines and the leveling progression systems. If you look at the Morningstar like dashboard for that, clearly like unfinished sort of UI asset. They've already said as well that like that's still something they're working on. They're not satisfied with the way that looks, the UI when you're picking your maps and stuff like that. So that's still something they're working on. It wasn't quite finished on delivery. There's a lot of examples of these things over the course of even just the last year in Fat Shark history. And that to me says that they aren't finishing their homework ahead of time, that they are under the gun to get things done. And who knows, this might just be a temporary thing. You know, they just finally got to basically what I would consider like 1.0 right here last year at the end of Q3 when they delivered the item rework. And from then, they're basically starting from scratch. They had all hands on deck to get the game to where Victor Magnuson said, like, you know, it is in a good place now. And then quarter by quarter, they're introducing new features that they had behind, you know, worked on before. And they want to have something to deliver every quarter, but it takes a while to get that flow going where you're working on something like 6 months ahead of time, right? To develop that cycle. And since they were put like sort of on a back foot from the very, very beginning of this whole mess, it sort of interrupts their planning phase. It puts them much more in the like, okay, we're just surviving. We're like printing updates 3 months at a time like that. So maybe going into 2026, we might see a new era of Fat Shark where they are going to be working on longer term plans that will start 6 months ahead of time, and then they'll work on it like that. And that could be something that you actually do a roadmap for. So that's sort of what I want to entice them with this video, is that a roadmap would be awesome, even if it is very general and non-specific. A roadmap to say, okay, the next time that you can expect maps is in the spring. The next time you can expect new weapons is in the summer, right? That sort of thing would go a long way to fostering goodwill within the community, and delivering on those expectations would further increase that goodwill. And I would love to see this for Fat Shark and Darktide. It's something that's never been done, even in the era where Darktide really, really could have used the positive publicity when it had a kind of a disastrous launch, and they had to, you know, scrabble it back from the brink of destruction. A roadmap would have been perfect there. If you look at how Gearbox has handled the bungled launch of the Seekers of the Storm DLC for Risk of Rain 2, that was a terrible launch. It was buggy as hell. Everyone review bombed the shit out of it. People were really pissed. They released a roadmap and said, guys, we don't have a very big team. It's going to take us like a year to fix this thing, but we promise you we will fix the thing. And you know what? They kept to their promise and they fixed the damn thing, and people are happy about it now. So if you can promise things and deliver on them, and even, you know, if you can't promise the most in the world, even if you're saying, okay, like, shit, we might be able to have a new class ready by like summer of next year, but just play it safe and say, you know what, next class for Darktide will be in fall of next year, right? If you say something like that and then you're able to deliver on it by that date, great. You could put extra polish on it and deliver it in fall, or you could have it done, like 99% done, and deliver it in summer and make everyone super excited, right? So, you know, there's lots of positives to doing this, and I would love to see it out of Darktide. I don't know if I have a huge hope for it happening, but I really do want to see that in the future for Fat Shark, because I think it would really, really behoove them and the way the community sees them. Anyway, guys, that's it for me. Thank you for watching this Yaptide, and that's Mystery out of here. Bye-bye.